Okay, let's discuss Airbnb's IPO and how you can make money off of it. So in this video, we're going to talk about three things. We're going to talk about number one, what's Airbnb's business model. Number two, what the IPO is and what it's all about, and then how you get an IPO. And then number three, how you can make money off of it and what analysts think. So stay tuned. First of all, Airbnb has been in business for many, many years, and it has been eligible for a really good IPO for a long time now. So what's important about that is when the pandemic hit, March and April, around those 2 months, they decreased big time. Airbnb lost millions and millions and millions of dollars of their revenue. They actually raised $1 billion during that time to get them through. And what that $1 billion was it was raised at a $17 billion valuation, which is really, really low because tomorrow, Thursday, December 10th, it will be valued at around $38 to $42 billion. So they raised just a few months ago money at a valuation of $17 billion, and now they're going to give it to us, to the rest of us, at a $42 billion evaluation, which is a lot higher. So the people that bought in and gave them $1 billion earlier are going to make a lot of money. What the business model is pretty simple, and everyone pretty much knows about it at this time, so I won't spend too much time on it. But a host puts their apartment or condo or house or room onto Airbnb and then rents it out to people all around the world, to guests that wants to come, operating like a small miniature hotel. I will show you my own personal Airbnbs and what happened to them during the March and April time during the pandemic, and mine bookings went to completely zero. So during that time, Airbnb lost a lot of money. That's when they raised money. However, they were also profitable at that time because they let a lot of people go, which is something kind of crazy. In order to really understand this IPO and what it means to you, you want to go to sec.gov. Now, what you'll find on there is the S1. Now, there's something called EDGAR, E-D-G-A-R, within the SEC website. And EDGAR is a tutorial program, and it allows you to look at all the filings and the prospectus that Airbnb has filed with the SEC. Now, that will tell you a lot of things. That will tell you how they're valuing things. That will tell you their revenue. That will tell you who owns stocks, who owns the majority of the stocks, who owns minority of the stocks, what the voting shares mean, how much money they borrowed. It's basically just the lifeblood of the organization. They filed that with the SEC, and I'll link to that below. That is how they are going to value this stock. The stock is looking like it's going to be valued at around $56 to $60 tomorrow when it comes up to be invested on, when it comes up on the stock market. And the little ticker symbol is going to be ABB. Kind of clever, right? They don't know quite what the price will be yet, between $56 and $60, because actually the bankers and the executive team of the company are going to meet tonight, and they're going to hash out those numbers tonight. So they don't even have those numbers themselves yet. They might have an idea of it, but the bankers are going to want to list lower to bring in more people, to bring in more buyers for the stock. And then Airbnb, the executive team, are going to want to list higher because that means they will be more wealthy and they will have a higher valuation on their own stock. So they're going to butt heads a little bit in that room tonight. It might be fairly contentious, but they will decide on a price tomorrow, and they will decide on tonight for tomorrow, and they'll decide on exactly how many shares to release into the public. A couple things about that. If you traditionally look at IPO launches and when IPOs become available, a few things happen traditionally now. One is they will have a pop between 24 and 48 hours after release. So if that holds true, the stock price will bump up really quickly, probably for about 2 days. That'll be the initial pop, and then it should maybe dip and fall back down because the initial excitement, the craze, supply and demand, everyone's running into the market. That's number one. Number two, you usually see that kind of fall, and then it might steadily go up, who knows. But the second time you might see a pop is a couple months after the initial IPO, and then a couple months after, you will see a quarterly earnings report. Quarterly earnings report is good, then it should pop the stock price up a little bit more. Bad, it might go the other way. However, around that same time after an IPO, a couple months afterwards, around when that quarterly earnings report is coming out, analysts from Goldman Sachs and very fancy stockbroker firms on Wall Street will give a rating saying how confident they are in the stock's value. And around that time, you usually see another little pop too. The third time you see a pop, and all these pops are where people usually make money, right? So if you buy low and then one of these things pops happen, and then you can, make the difference. So the third pop is when the lockout or lockdown period expires. When the IPO happens tomorrow, the executive team and the employees, the majority of them are going to be barred from selling their stock. They can't just dump it all the day of the IPO. after their lockout or lockdown period, they will be able to dump a lot of it. And that's when you will see, traditionally rather, you see a stock go down because a large amount of supply is coming onto the market. An IPO is very, very volatile, and they stay traditionally, again, with that 6 months to 9 months is when you start to see the stock turn into just to a regularly seasoned stock, where it will just trade kind of close to its value as possible, or traditionally like a regular stock will as possible. Now, if you want to jump in and get on a piece of this, you can go to Robinhood.com and a link below, and then what you would do is you'll set up an investor account, and then tomorrow when it comes out you can have your money in, and then you can invest in that IPO as well if you want to. Now, it is a very speculative investment. Stockbrokers tell you not to spend too much of your portfolio, maybe 1 to 5% allocations for something like a risky investment, so that might be something to look at. I'm no stock expert at all. I don't even really have that many myself. I'm more of a real estate guy, but this is just information for you to look more into and ask appropriate professionals and ask a tax advisor or CPA or whatever before you make any kind of personal investment decisions for yourself. Some problems that Airbnb has had is during the pandemic, when a lot of things came to a halt as far as hospitality and travel, Airbnb allowed most of the guests to cancel their reservations with 100% refund. That hurt a lot of hosts, myself included, because that brought their revenue down to zero. No matter what side of the debate you're on, that damaged a lot of credibility in the hostess eyes of Airbnb. Airbnb has tried to kind of make that back up to them in this S1, and they have really highlighted contribution of the hosts in this S1, and if you read it, you'll see what I'm talking about. It's really worth noting, though, that most analysts and most people familiar with this stock IPO is expecting it to be a very, very huge deal for a couple reasons. Number one, the brand recognition, the brand name is so strong, most everyone knows it. Number two, right now in the market, there's not a lot of alternative investments that people can make. And number three, they think that because they have raised money to get them through, and because they showed some profitability numbers, and their S1 they believe is really, really strong, that they believe that this will probably be one of the best times to have an IPO, probably like in the last 20 years in the history of market IPOs. They're expecting this one to be a very, very strong one. People are very, very optimistic about this.